As I said at the top of the program, we're going to focus on school resources. As the new school year was about to begin, you may have seen or read news reports about local teachers forced to buy school supplies out of their own pocket. A recent survey by Agile Education Marketing found that teachers spent on average $487 during the 2015-2016 school year. More than 3/4 of the teachers surveyed spent $200 or more. This may be why. Take a look at these numbers. State funding for many basic school supplies is down. As you can see on this chart, funding per student peaked at just over $60 per child in 2010-2011 and then sharply declined, bottoming out at $28 per child the last 2 years. It's rebounding slightly this year to just over $30. School supplies aren't the only area that has seen reduction in funding over the last few years. As you can see here, our schools have seen reductions in textbook funding, down 38%, teacher assistant funding down 37%, non-instructional support down 21.4%. Yes, some areas are definitely up from where they bottomed out as the national economy cratered in 2008-2009, but North Carolina is simply not investing like we were before the recession. While teacher pay gets most of the attention, budgets for things like school supplies reach right into the classroom. With us today are two teachers who are going to share their experiences with us. We have Jasmine Lauer. Jasmine is from Sanderson High School here in Raleigh. And we have Renisha Best, who is with Olive Chapel Elementary in Apex. Now, Jasmine, I first heard your name back in August when the News and Observer did a story about reduced funding for school supplies and about the legislature eliminating the tax-free shopping weekend that was forcing teachers like you to buy school supplies. How much are you spending? Is this what's going on?
Absolutely, and we're spending more and more every year than we did the year before just to meet the basic needs of students. So you asked how much am I spending? I actually tried to kind of add it up this morning before I came in. So far this school year, I've spent around $475 on supplies for my students in my classroom. Simple things like colored pencils, pens, paper, paper clips.
So that survey was actually pretty accurate as far as what you think teachers. Now I have to follow up because that story that I mentioned, which we have posted on our website, generated a written response in the newspaper from probably the second most powerful legislator in Raleigh, Senator Bob Rucco. He wrote a letter to the editor basically saying, you shouldn't complain because you're really so much better off than you used to be 4 years ago before all the tax cuts and pay raises. That must have been kind of surreal.
It was. It was very frustrating. It really was, because I do make more money than I did pre-recession. I don't make what the state promised me pre-recession my salary would be at 17 and a half years, but I do make more money than I did. However, I don't believe under any circumstances that it's appropriate to say the salary I'm given for the work I do should be spent on supplies for students. That's not my obligation as a teacher. It's the obligation of the state to provide a free and public education.
Right. Renisha, what's going on at Olive Chapel, and with you and with teachers that you know there and across Wake County? Is it similar stories?
It's exactly the same. I was listening to what Jasmine was saying about how much she spent, and I'm a year-round teacher, so I've been in school since August 1st, and my other colleagues at my school have been in school since July 11th. And just looking at how much I've spent, it's very close to almost $600. Wow. And we just finished the first quarter. So we still have many, many more school days left to go. And I know there's going to be a lot more coming out of my pocket, because in order for me to continue being a creative and innovative teacher, I have to reach into my purse every month, sometimes every single week, to give them what they need.
Frankly, I have a hard time getting my head around the fact that we just don't have enough paper and pencils and crayons. I mean, we're not talking about special things. We're talking about basic supplies. Now, Jasmine, you've been in teaching for 17 years? 17 and a half, I think.
17 and a half, yeah.
Is it different today than it was when you started?
Absolutely. I teach high school English, so in my curriculum, mostly what we do is read books, right? That's what we do. Right. We read books. And so one of the things that we don't have like we used to are the supplemental texts. You remember from high school, we all remember from high school, taking home a copy of All Quiet on the Western Front or Things Fall Apart, and we just don't have them anymore. Last year, I bought a class set of books for my students because I wanted them to read a book that we only had 20 of in the book room, and that wasn't enough for my students to read them. So we're finding that just not even to be creative and innovative, like Ranisha said, but in order to be what I need to be to get my students the skills they need, I'm having to spend money on content even, not just supplies, but the things they have to have in order to gain their content knowledge.
Renisha, what about them? How do the parents react? I mean, I was a parent myself. I know I'm going to open house first day, first week of school, and get this big list of things that we could really use. I mean, that's kind of the norm now.
It truly is. And I have so many kids who come in and they truly can't afford it. So in order for them to continue getting what they need, I have to go buy it. And we don't have textbooks at my school. So then I'm trying to find ways to recreate the wheel and find ways that I can truly give them the information and instruction that they need. It's very, very similar. It's across the board.
So what do we need to do as a state? I mean, is it something, obviously there is a, we've got, we're going to talk about school funding on this show over the next, several weeks, months. The state of North Carolina has an obligation to provide, as you mentioned, a sound basic education. We also have the counties. Wake County is actually one of the better funded school systems in the state. But yet we're still seeing this. What do you think we need to do?
We have to reinvest in public education.
Exactly.
And we have to listen to the people of North Carolina who, if you ask across the board, people say, I love my kids' schools. I loved the schools I went to. I wish that we gave more to public education. And we need to start listening to the people of North Carolina who say it's important to us that we invest in public education.
Right.
I completely agree. It's so important. The education's the future. I know how cliche that sounds, but it really is.
Right.
And if you want to continue advancing North Carolina, you've got to invest in our kids. And it starts with the classroom.
And I think it's really important too, not just that we talk about our obligation to students, because we do, but we have an obligation to them, but we also have an obligation to our state and to the employers of our state, that we're providing a sound education so that we have a capable workforce. And I think not only private citizens, but I think corporations and businesses and universities all need to be giving this pressure to say, invest in public education because we need it.
Right. Now, you're obviously seeing a lot of children coming in, much more diverse student population than ever before. Obviously, lots of differences in terms of family income and where they come. I'm guessing things like the extra resources that you're saying that you don't have would make things a little bit easier to help some of the children who already are coming in, kind of having less resources at home, and then they're coming into school and you're having to sort of ration things. That's
and I'd say probably Renisha will say the exact same thing, but in my classroom, my belief has always been that no student should come in and not be on a level playing field. So if I ask students to have a 3-ring binder, then everybody in the room is going to have a 3-ring binder. If they can't afford it, or if their parents don't get them one for whatever reason, then I'm going to provide that for them, because I don't ever want a student to feel like they were ill-prepared because they couldn't afford what was needed in class. So a lot of times that's where all of that extra money comes that we're spending. We're providing for those kids who can't afford it also.
Well, even with these challenges, is it still worth it?
Absolutely. I wouldn't change a thing.
Absolutely. I love it every day.
Y'all are terrific. Thanks so much. You guys are great.
Thank you.
We appreciate what you do every day. Up next, you'll want to stick around and hear from 2 people very engaged in supporting our schools at the local and state level. As we go to break, see if you can answer this question. The state budget for textbooks in 2009-2010 was $111 million. What is the textbook budget for 2016-2017?